everyone, it's Amelia here and welcome to another Work It Wednesday through the Dressage Addict Rider to Rider support scheme. I hope you're all keeping cool, you and your ponies, in this very hot weather, and that is exactly what we're going to be looking at today. This is one of my favourite exercises, especially in this weather, because it's 10 to 15 minutes, and it's not strenuous, so it's low impact, so nobody gets too hot. So it's ideal for this weather, but it's also really useful all year round for strengthening whilst not causing any excess stress and strain on those joints. So, raised walk poles. I do this generally once a week with all of my horses. We do it on this small circle, but you can do it any way you wish. I'm just lazy and this is minimal walking. And you can actually use the turns at each end to increase the suppleness of the horse's hind end by doing some slight lateral steps and getting the inside hind to cross and step under. And now I do 5 to 6 minutes each way, so 10 to 12 minutes in total, and the distance and the height of the poles depends on the horse, and we'll go into that a little bit more later. But as you can see, we just encourage them to wander around, preferably actually keep moving, but generally at their own sort of speed. Ideally, they'll put their head and neck down to have a look, as JJ demonstrates perfectly here, and just generally lifting the core, engaging all those stabilising muscles that they are required to use when riding. And because they're in the walk, they can't use the moment of suspension. They have to engage and use all of their own muscles to create the posture required for them to get cleanly over the poles. Don't get me wrong, the poles come down all the time. I have Mum around helping me. I can make small adjustments like I did just there, but Mum generally comes down and helps me put them all back up when they knock them down like that. So what I was meaning about the distance is, so this is JJ stood normally, and if you watch when I apply some pressure, his pelvis will tip forward. Like there, you can just ever so slightly see that his pelvis comes more forward. This is because he, as a horse, has a natural tendency to have his pelvis tucked under, as does this pony here, Jazzy. So they both like to sit in quite a tucked in posture. So for them, we have the poles quite long, so that they have to stretch to reach them, and we have them fairly high, just to encourage that when the hind leg is coming through, it has to lift and then stretch forward, because to do that, the pelvis has to tip forward into a more neutral position rather than the sat under position that these two prefer. So it's all about enhancing their posture while doing this. So, like lengthwise, it's going to depend on how long your pony's natural walk is. So these poles, I use the same length for Jazz and JJ, but actually she found these a lot longer. You can see she is having to really stretch to her maximum of her body's ability to do that, to get through these, whereas JJ actually found them quite easy. And you'll notice that Jazzy has a German string or a lunging rope, they're called a multitude of different things, on while she does it. This is because if she doesn't, she has a tendency to absolutely llama and stick her head straight up in the air, not relax, not look down at the poles, fall over them all, and just generally get herself in a bit of a tiz while not doing her body any good. So she has the German string on, it's really loose, she can still put her head up, you can see it bagging away, but it's just as a bit of a reminder that she really does just need to keep her head low and look down, look at the poles and think about where her feet are going. But as you saw, JJ did it naked because he naturally looks down at the poles and uses himself properly. So this is Midnight. This is another pony who has a tendency to tuck under. Now, Midnight does not walk straight through the poles. You need the pony. For the pony to be correctly building muscle and strength, they need to be staying straight. They also have more chance of leaving them up if they stay straight through them. So as you can see, I've got a schooling whip in my hand with her. And what I do is when her bum is swinging towards me, or the shoulders are swinging out, I point the whip at her bum to push her bum back behind her shoulders. And then if her shoulders start to come in, I point the whip at her shoulders to push those back out in front of her bum. I hope that makes sense. You'll see it better from a different angle in a minute. But I also use it to encourage them to keep moving forwards. She can get a bit stuck So we want her, there's a really good example of her using her body from behind. You can see the hind legs were pushing through straight and under, which is exactly what you need for correct connection and impulsion in your flat work. So this can help encourage them and teach them that the correct thing to do is step straight and under while keeping the mobility in the hind leg, because they have to be able to lift it to get over the poles. So as you can see there, I've just moved the whip and given her a little stab in the air near her shoulder, just to say, no, keep your shoulders out, keep them straight and move straight through the poles. And it just means, like there, you can see a still of it, just means I can keep her straighter and therefore keep her body in a much better position for strengthening. Now, this is Freddie. He's the opposite to my others. He likes to sit with the pelvis flattened forward. So as you can see there, I like him to be able to tip it and rock under. This will help him with collection, which is something he finds really difficult. So for him, we like the poles high and short. This means he has to put the head and neck down and really engage and lift the core and tip that pelvis back to allow him to take the short steps to bring the hind leg up and under, but not take a long stride with it, because that will allow him to get flat and therefore tip the pelvis forward. All of these things I have found out alongside my physio. So me and Alice have spoken in detail, and we've looked at the ponies' conformation and their natural posture, and then we've worked together to come up with the plan of what I need to do with each of them. So do get involved with your physios. Lara's another one who's like Fred, who is naturally tipped forward and doesn't like collection. But Lara finds these poles really hard. You'll notice, although she's the biggest of my bunch, she actually has the poles the lowest, and she finds them really stressful. So with Lara, the poles are the right distance for her walk strides. We don't make her shorten or lengthen because we just want her to stay calm. And they're nice and low, so they stay within what she deems is easy. She doesn't have to push herself too far out her comfort zone, and this means she stays relaxed, and when they're relaxed, they can build and strengthen. They will not build and strengthen the correct muscles if they're running around tense. And it's no good for anyone to be tense. We like all our ponies to be happy. So this is the next exercise that I do with the walk poles. This is just 3 poles on a really sharp turn and really quite high. So this encourages the pony to not only engage the core, but also flex through the rib cage at the same time. You can see it quite well from here. Jazzy has to really bend through the ribs while also lifting the core to get over the poles. So this can really help with your expression on your small circles and through your lateral work. It's really good for their suppleness of the back as well. And it just allows you to be able to lift that inside shoulder whilst you are doing your smaller circles and things, because it encourages the correct posture required for that. So this is just to give you a rough example of how mine's set up. So I think I have about 7 metres between the 2 sets of poles. So the horses are on sort of a large 10-metre circle when they do it. And then just an example of distances. So Freddie is 13 hands, and for his short poles, I think the gap is about 45 centimetres. I just do it roughly by eye each time I go out there, and put them through it once, and if it doesn't look right, then fine, we change it. It's all very sort of just trial and error, but just so you have a rough idea for when you first go out. And then JJ is 14.2, and his long poles are about 70 centimetres, and I'd say Lara's sort of comfortable poles, she's 15.2, are also about 70 centimetres, so that should just give you a rough idea of what to play around with when you first go out there. But just have a look at your horse walking round, and then you can see roughly where you would need a pole for them to be in a comfortable walk rhythm over them. And I'd always start with a comfortable walk rhythm, like lengthwise for them, and keep the heights comfortable to start with, and then you can start to push them a bit when they are more confident in the exercise. And height-wise, I've had JJ over poles sort of 50, 60 centimetres high, and he'll just step over them. He is very good at this, but yeah, just play around, see what you can do. The higher they step, the harder it is for them. And this works in a very similar way to water treadmills, so I can't afford to take all of my horses to a water treadmill. It would bankrupt me, quite frankly. So this is what we do instead, and it's working all the same muscles, and it's more adjustable. So yeah, I love it. Give it a go, let me know how you get on. I hope you guys all love it too, and I hope this has been helpful. I will speak to you next week.